Has anyone else come across one of those weird little small towns off a desolate stretch of highway that just feel really off? I know I've seen a post floating around here somewhere about a Truman Show style town, as the poster put it, and I can't help but feel I stumbled upon the same kind of thing, although not exactly. Basically, I was on a night drive during the summer because I was making the trek to go and visit some friends in upstate NY. Me being from the middle of nowhere in the Midwest, this was quite a drive for me, and so I knew full well I would have to make a pit stop at some point on the journey there. I did not really have a place in mind. I had a decent wad of cash and was just ready to roll the dice and pull over to the nearest place to me when I was tired. I wasn't even really opposed to just sleeping in my car. It was old and shitty but spacious enough. One of those hatchback type things, so I could just push the seats down and pretend I had a very small bed. Might wake up with a few neck pains, but no big deal really. Anyway, so I was driving down, I think the I-80, but I can't remember how long I had been driving for. I tend to just zone out when I'm driving and go on autopilot, especially once you get to the desolate stretches where you do not see a lot of people. Anyway, the weather was starting to take a turn for the worst, and I could see this big wall of fog starting to roll in. The weather was forecast as being pretty nice and dry for the next few days at least, so I was not expecting something like this to impact my drive. It's weird because once I got to this certain stretch, man, I must have been driving for close to 10 hours with just a few brief stops along the way. But once I got to this stretch, it's like everything just changed. Like, no cars anywhere in sight anymore. This fog started rolling in from nowhere, and the skies were suddenly incredibly cloudy. My headlights were doing nothing at all to give me any kind of visibility, and I was seriously worried that I was going to get myself killed. The smart thing would have probably just been to pull over somewhere safe, but I decided that the next place I could turn into, I would. I did not want to risk waking up to some idiot driver slamming into the back of me and me waking up just to die. I swear, it got to the point where I could only see like a few feet in front of me. The fog was so thick, and I was not going very fast at all, just in case. I started to hear these horrible sounds the more I was driving through the fog too. I started hearing this screeching of metal off in the distance in random bursts. Like a few minutes of silence, and then like a non-stop minute of screeching, and man, it hurt my ears. I knew that there was some kind of turn coming up, because I downloaded a map on my phone, or whatever, so I could see it offline. I think there was a gas station somewhere on the right coming up, so I was getting ready. But I had a really bad scare. I'm not sure what happened, but I swore that somewhere on the edge of the fog, like standing somewhere inside the fog, I could see some kind of black shadow or silhouette. It kept moving with the pace of my vehicle and was like, I don't know, making some kind of motion, jumping on the spot and waving its arms like it was calling for help. And then all of a sudden, it's not a shadow anymore, and it's a person, and I can't stop in time. Time just seemed to really slow down, and boom, I hit someone. Some random man. He looked homeless. I hit him at a serious pace. I saw him fly into the fog and just become a shadow again. I was freaking the hell out, thinking I killed someone and that I was going to jail. No way was I getting out of my car to check on him, just in case someone hit me, so I drove incredibly slowly to try and find him, but I found no trace of him inside the fog. He just up and vanished. I half wondered if maybe I imagined it, because there is no way anyone was getting up from that and just walking it off, but I did not see him again. I spent the rest of the time driving, just shaking and wondering what happened. I eventually came up on this turn. There was some kind of a sign for a turnoff, which I think was for a town. The sign was obscured by the fog and all scratched up from age. A something, I think the town was called. I think it definitely had an A, but I can't be sure since I was still freaking out in my head. I drove down this old and wobbly ass road, but after a couple of minutes, the fog just ceased to exist. There was still a wall of it behind me, but this little town had none of it, and I could finally see clearly again, and I was so relieved. The first thing I did was drive right over to the sheriff's office to explain what happened. I could not in good conscience just pretend that nothing happened. It was starting to get dark at this point, but I did get a chance to speak with him. It was a pretty old and rundown place, and weirdly, he was the only person in there in the station. Instead of having any kind of secretary or anyone else helping him, he was actually waiting near the door for me and welcomed me inside himself. I figured that maybe the town really was just that small, or maybe someone was sick. Either way, he led me to his office and I followed him. The office smelled horribly. It smelled like something had died in the walls and was left just to rot there. It was really awkward too. He just kind of sat in his chair and stared at me for a really long time, not saying anything at all. He was waiting for me to start speaking, just staring at me. I, after a while, started to explain what happened. He had this really big smile on his face that he did not drop the entire time I was talking, even when I explained that I had hit someone. He was not smiling at first. He only started this big smile the second I started talking, and the second I stopped, he just dropped it. He just stared right at me with this big grin, but he was not actually looking me in the eyes. He was looking just slightly below, it looked like he was staring at my mouth or something. Anyway, once I gotten all of that off of my chest, we sat there in silence for a few moments, and my heart was beating out of my chest, wondering what was going to happen to me. I sat, and I waited, and I waited, and then I waited until I was like, so what is gonna happen now? And then when I said this, all of a sudden, he just shot up, like he sprung into action, and he told me something about how he would drive out there and try and check. He told me he believed me, and that I was absolutely fine and was not in any trouble at all. I told him that I looked for him already, and that he would not find him. And when I told him this, he didn't. He stopped himself in his tracks at the door and sat himself right back down. Same smile still on his face, and told me that I was right and that looking for him was pointless. And so I asked him what he was going to do instead, and he paused for a few seconds. The smile wiped right off his face, like instantly. Like he went from smiling to not smiling faster than my eyes could even process. And then he just looks at me and gets all serious and then switches the topic and is like, "Why don't you go get some rest? There is a nice little diner in town that people love if you are hungry." I was feeling really weird at this point, so I was just like, "Cool, thanks, bye then." So I got up and walked out, and he followed me all of the way to the door. He was literally like one step behind me. I could feel the air on the back of my neck from him moving so close to me. I actually was kinda hungry, so I went and moved my car out of the sheriff's office parking lot and parked up in the only place that looked suitable, and then got out and walked. The diner was really busy. It did not look like your typical diner and was pretty big. I counted a good amount of people in there, 20 at least, but probably a lot more. Maybe double that, but I can't really remember. Only one booth was not fully in use. It seemed like a big place and a lot of people for such a small town. I mean, seriously, there was a whole lot of nothing in this place. A few tiny houses, a sheriff's office, the smallest motel I have probably ever seen, and then this weirdly large diner. I was actually escorted to my seat by a worker, which really surprised me, and then I sat down and they took my order. They were acting more like a fancy waiter at a restaurant who waits by the door and welcomes customers. There was music blasting, and it was pretty lively, but it did not take long for me to notice that something was just fundamentally wrong with this place. I did not notice it at first because the music was so loud, and I guess just made my brain imagine that conversations was taking place, but the entire time that I was there, not a word was said. There were families, couples, workers on shift together, etc., but I never heard a single word being spoken by any of them to each other. Come to think of it, it was me who spoke to the worker when I came in and asked for a place to sit, and they just made a motion with their arm and led me to a place. And I just rattled off my order pretty quickly without even being asked. I guess I just assumed that they had already asked me because, I don't know, you just kind of expect it, I guess. My brain had just filled in the blanks. I did not even really ask for all that much, but my order seemed to be taking a really, really long time. I thought I'd get my coffee pretty quickly at least, but the workers just seemed to be stood behind the counter and whispering something to each other, but I could not hear anything. One had a notepad and was writing something down, but I noticed that they were writing for a really long time. Bear in mind, this was the first time I saw anyone start to talk to each other. I could not hear what they were saying, but the waitress was just scribbling and scribbling and scribbling until suddenly, she looked up and made eye contact with me, and then both of them went into the back. I never saw anyone else come in or them taking anyone else's order. Everybody already had full plates. I had nothing to do and felt really out of place, so I guess I just started paying closer attention. There was just some gut feeling in my body telling me that something was wrong and to leave, but I felt really, really silly for thinking that. I remember I turned behind me to some middle-aged dude sat across from something else, and I asked, "Hey, does service normally take this long?" And I let out a little chuckle. He instantly mirrored this, and the second that I let out a laugh, he did the same kind of short laugh, and he smiled at me, and he kept smiling, and he did not say a word and just looked at me. So I said, "Is the food worth the wait because it looks good?" And I pointed at his plate, and he literally let out the exact same chuckle as before, the same short chuckle I let out, and again, he just smiled at me and did not say a word. I just turned back around because by now, I was shitting my pants. Another 5 minutes went by, and I still did not have my coffee, so I was debating going and asking what was taking so long, but the workers still were not back yet. I noticed something really strange after this. I was starving, and I was watching this guy one booth over from me in front of me, eating these pancake-type things that looked so delicious. I was watching him digging in, but really, I was just staring at the food. They looked so, I don't know, shiny, like they were glazed with something, and I really wanted to take a bite. And I watched for a minute or two, just staring at the food and pretending it was me eating it, before I realized that the guy eating them was not actually cutting up anymore. So I think, hey, probably talking to his family, right? I shit you not. I saw this guy raise the fork up to his mouth, put his entire mouth around the food, and then take the fork right back out of his mouth with the food still on the end of it and put it back down on his plate. And then he made himself swallow. And then he pretended to cut off some more food. But then he brought the same bit of food on his fork right back up to his mouth and repeated the exact same thing. I swear I watched him do this 1 or 2 or even 3 times before I turned back to the man I had tried to talk to before, and lo and behold, he had still eaten the exact same amount of his burger as before. I was literally sinking into my seat, and my heart started racing. I had no idea what the hell was going on. I think I waited another few minutes, and some waitress finally brought my food over. It was just a regular-ass cheeseburger. I don't know what it was, but I was nervous to take a bite, and I'm not sure why. I mean, it was just a burger, but I had this itchy feeling gnawing at me. Anyway, I took a bite out of that burger and near spat it back out. The burger tasted like rubber, and it was horrible. I put the burger back down on my plate, and I did not look around to confirm, but people were staring at me. The guy in front of me was like frozen mid-motion of eating his pancakes and was just giving me a death stare. Other booths in front of me were looking at me too. The music had suddenly stopped, but I don't remember being that loud or causing a scene. So I got up and just left the diner. And the entire walk out of there, I noticed that the waitresses were staring at me, and so were the other people in the booths too. It gave me the chills. I just went straight over to the small-ass motel and got a room. The worker there looked surprised to see me. They hesitated a lot when I asked for a room and wanted to go straight to sleep. They excused themselves for a second and called someone up and checked something before letting me pay. I have no idea what they said to each other. Once I got the key, I went to my room on the second floor and just crashed. I was so exhausted from all of the stress of the day that I was just immediately knocked out. I have no idea what time it was when I woke up. I woke up to the pitch darkness and a weird sound coming from my door. It sounded like someone was trying the handle. I immediately shit my pants and started scrambling for my Ruger before realizing I left it in my car like a moron. I still had a Derringer stuffed in my jeans though. My dad always swore by it as a backup, and he kinda instilled that in me. I usually tuck it near my ankle and conceal it there, but just had it in my pocket this time. I was thanking my lucky stars I at least had that with me. This rattling of my handle did not stop, and so I positioned myself strategically so that if anyone came inside, I could get the drop on them and shoot them before they had time to react. I'm not sure how long I waited in the darkness. 5, maybe 10 minutes, until the rattling got more aggressive before it eventually stopped. I heard some really faint footsteps that sounded like they were moving away from my door, but I was not going to let my guard down. I waited, and I nearly shit my pants right then and there when I heard some kind of bang on my window coming from behind me. This is going to sound totally unbelievable, and to this day, I can barely believe it myself, but there was someone at my window. This person was on a damn ladder, a big one. I don't think he meant to knock though. I think that was an accident. He was holding some kind of screwdriver or other kind of tool in his hand and was just staring directly at me while working on the window. I don't know if it was the right call, but I took aim with my Derringer and was getting ready to fire. I was debating whether I should wait for him to open it and then fire to confirm that I would hit and not do his dirty work for him by getting rid of the window. But when I heard my doorknob rattling again, even louder this time, I just fired instinctively. I don't know if I made a clean connection or not, but I saw the man lose his balance and the ladder go toppling backwards, and when he did, the rattling stopped. I rushed over to the window to see what happened to the man, but when I looked, the only thing I could see was the ladder lying down on the floor. There was no man in sight, so I guess he must have scrambled off. I saw something liquid on the ground, which I assume was blood at the time, but thinking back on it, it did not look like blood. Maybe it was so dark that I just imagined it, but I don't think it looked red. Maybe a trick of the light. Maybe my eyes had not adjusted to the darkness properly. I stayed up all night, just waiting for someone to bust down the door. I did not get a wink of sleep. The second that the sun came up, I just rushed out of there. I didn't even check out properly. I just left the keys in the room and snuck by when I saw that there was no one at the front desk. I managed to get all of the way to my car, I assumed undetected, but when I sat down and belted up, I heard a knocking on my window, the same sheriff from before. It made me shit my pants. He was making a motion for me to roll my window down, and I did, but only a crack. The tiniest sliver, just so that I could hear him. He still was not all that talkative, but he asked me to step out of the car. I refused, and asked why, and he told me that there had been a disturbance, and that my actions had been reported, is what he told me. I got so blindingly angry, I just started laying into him about what happened, and how dare he accuse me, and blah blah blah. And this guy, you know what this guy did? He started squeezing his hands into the tiny crack into my window. He was full on, forcing his fingers through the crack, contorting them to fit, and was trying to pull my damn window down. I was trying to spam the button for the window to go up, but he was still pulling it down, all while repeating, "Get out, get out, get out," over and over again, like some kind of a record stuck on loop. He sounded really angry. It was the most emotion I ever heard from the guy. I told him no, and that this was unlawful, and he just ignored me and kept on shouting, "Get out, get out, get out," over anything that I had to say. And maybe this was not the right move, and maybe I did break the law doing this, but I just started my engine and hit the gas. I just drove. I was so done and did not care anymore. No way what he was doing was right, especially after I was attacked. He tried to cling on and would not let go of my window at first. I started slow so that he had a chance to let go, but he continued doing the same thing, and when I sped up, he had no choice but to let go. Otherwise, I would have dragged him down the highway. The fog had gone by this point, thankfully, and I just drove. I drove for another few miles until I got to a gas station that I was familiar with, and I pulled in and slept like a baby. I ended up making the rest of the drive after that, but never mentioned it to my friends because they would just laugh at me. I never reported anything to the cops because no way am I going to tell them that I ran a man over, fled the scene, shot another man through my motel window with my Derringer, and then fled from law enforcement, all within 24 hours. They would obviously side with the sheriff, and I would be screwed, and I would be put away for who knows how long. I brought this here because I thought it was my only shot at being believed or even getting any answers. Has anyone else stumbled upon one of these weird towns? What the hell are they even for, and why? And what were they planning to do to me? Hey, hope you've enjoyed the story so far. If you want to hear more, make sure to subscribe, like the video, and leave a comment because it lets YouTube know you like the content and helps more people to see these videos. My next big goal for the channel is 100,000 subscribers, and as a celebration, I will be doing a Q&A video once we hit that goal. Thank you, and back to the stories. I was like 9 or 10 years old when this one happened. It's hot as hell during the summer, but I like playing outside. I got out around 8 or 9 at night, a little bit into dusk when it is cool. There are no other kids out that late, so I just walk around and look at the houses in my suburb. About every 3 nights, there would be a light following me. It would start from about 30 feet away and follow at that distance, but would not back away if you got closer to it. For the first few times of this, it does not even register in my mind how weird this is. I can't even remember the thought process that would have justified it not being worrying. About the 4th or 5th time it happens, I decide to approach it. As I walk up, the light shines in my eyes, and I can't see where it's coming from. It's like getting a light shined in your face, and you can't see the source of the light, just completely blinding. I walk directly over, and then behind where the light was coming from, or at least, where I thought it was coming from. Nothing. I turn around and the light is just gone. Like it was just floating there or some shit. I have no idea. Sometimes it would flicker a little. Sometimes it would sway back and forth. If I was on the move away from it, it followed in a perfectly straight path, not turning for the road or obstacles. Everywhere that my grandpa lived, some beings followed. Over time, I came to realize a witch is stalking him. In fact, I remember my mom telling me about a witch a few times, but being so young, I did not really even know what that meant. My only experience with witches at that point was a TV show called Sabrina the Teenage Witch. Anyway, this home I lived in was hexed, simply because my grandpa lived there. I saw many things, from shadow people to Satan. This particular incident is about the living room couch. My grandma is diabetic, which means she can't really hold in any pee. She also cannot resist the urge to drink water. So when the urge came, about at, say, 1 a.m., she has to go. She has to go through the most haunted area of the house if she wants any juice, the corridor. Rather than going alone, she woke me up. I was just an elementary school boy, and unlucky. She did not want to wake up Grandpa because he had work at 5 in the morning. She grabbed my hand and off we went. At these times, we made it to the kitchen with no issues. As soon as we arrived, Grandma turned on the lights. She grabbed some orange juice and then went to the bathroom. All of this took like 3 minutes. From the kitchen, you have access to the living room. From the entrance, you can see most of it, if the lights are on. Standing to the left of the fridge, I could see the big couch. Laying on the couch was a black figure. Every time, and I mean every time I noticed it, he would raise his head and glance at me. This happened every single night. The pattern was always the same. He would raise his head and then attempt to sit up. He would fail a few times. He would then finally use his elbows to support his weight. His spine was at a 45-degree angle or so he was not fully sitting. He just wanted to stare back at me, it seems. I call it a he because he did not have long hair. During these stare downs, I always tried to identify him. I thought maybe it was my uncle, who also lived with this. I began to feel bad at first. Grandma turning the kitchen lights on kept waking him up. But then I realized, Uncle had a rectangle head. This figure had an oval-shaped head. Eventually, Grandma noticed, after a few days of this, that I kept contacting this shadow figure. She noticed me always staring at the same direction. She saw the figure with its elbows, keeping it up. She gasped and exclaimed that I should never ever look at these creatures. She then said that we urgently need to go back to our rooms. As soon as she grabbed me to push me towards the corridor, that figure jerked its body. It was now sitting on the couch rather than laying, feet and legs off the couch and on the carpet, his body facing the TV, except his back was hunched. His body language seemed defeated or depressed. We left in such a hurry that Grandma did not even turn off the light on departure like she usually did. Ever since then, that figure began a new pattern. After sitting up with its elbows, he would eventually turn his body to just sit properly, but in a slumped position, feet planted on the floor. That thing was like a cue, a timer. When he sat upright, it was time for Grandma to finish and leave. This lasted for a few days. On the final day, he stood up, body straight, like a soldier. I say final day, because that was the last time I saw anything in the living room. Grandma's diabetes did not cure overnight, however. She still needed to go and grab a sip of Kool-Aid. We took the same route, the only route. Through the corridor we went. That night was different. There was some light in the corridor, leaking from the small opening under the bathroom door. Someone was showering at this hour. I was relieved because it made me feel less lonely. To the left of the bathroom is the kitchen containing our larger fridge. Grandma offered me a glass of water that night. I remember that night so well. No shadow man in sight. As we return, I am feeling more confident. We enter the corridor one step. I stop and ask Grandma, "Who is in the bathroom?" She did not even get to fully finish her sentence. "I don't know." We hear a squeak. The shower knob turned, turning off the water. Then a swift brush of the shower curtain. Then we hear wet footsteps running towards the door. Tap, 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 tap. It all happened in like 1 second. This shadow behemoth violently turned the doorknob and opened the door. I only saw a glimpse of it before it turned off the light. It moved right in front of our path. It was not the same shadow man from the living room. This thing was massive, but still a shadow creature. All black, no face. It was so wide, it was as if 3 fully grown men were sharing the same shirt. This thing had long hair as well, a massive head to go along with its massive body. I noticed part of its right arm, the arm that flipped the light switch, was still in the bathroom, but the bathroom door was mostly closed, maybe an inch open. This confirmed that the shadow was, well, a shadow. Paper thin, but so wide. As my night vision adjusted, I noticed it grab its locks. It pulled on it to the point where its head slightly cocked to the right. I hung onto Grandma, who looked just so small in comparison. Her diabetes rendered her short and thin. She was easily 1/6 the size of this thing in front of us. This thing was way bigger than the couch shadow man. The shadow man from the living room was a normal-sized adult, bigger than Grandma but not superhuman. Since this mass was blocking the way to the bedroom, there was no sleeping there tonight. After standing there, feeling afraid to move, let alone scream, Grandma turned us around. We went past the kitchen and into the living room. I glanced at the couch. I saw nothing there. I did not dare look behind me to see if the big thing followed. Grandma took me past the front door and outside. We hit a few chairs on the front porch. We just sat there in silence. I assumed that we would just sit here until sunup, maybe even sleep there. Grandma is diabetic and needs proper sleep though. She took us into Grandpa's van and reclined the seat. We slept in the van after all. I'm just glad we didn't sleep in the living room. Next day, I had time to collect my thoughts. Grandma hated discussing the paranormal, so she would not answer any questions. Grandpa always gave the same response. Don't worry, just ignore them. I only had myself. That mask from last night seemed familiar, I thought. It took a bit of pondering, but I eventually figured it out. Down the road is a hair salon. It has its own towering advertisement, like how McDonald's has its own big M sign. On the salon sign was a simple shaded drawing of a woman. Its hair was very similar to that of the shadow behemoth, as if the shadow monster copied it and failed, ending up instead with a corrupted version. This made me shiver. Did the spirits leave the house and make it down the road? Or did they join us for a car ride? How did they become aware of that image?